in bigger words. But I want you to kind of understand what he's going to do. Then what I'm going to do is come back, and as he goes through the steps, we'll update this diagram again so you can kind of see how it progresses. So the environment we've got set up is a real world environment. You know, Josh is going to be the cyber criminal. He's the attacker. Over here on my machine, I'm going to be the victim, and I'll represent a couple of different persons in an environment. I'm going to be just kind of the normal user, maybe as a customer support personnel, just an employee that's maybe has to interact with the community, and then I'll also have a desktop that looks like an executive. In our case, we'll call it Chief Information Officer. This demo is actually connected back to our labs in Huntsville, Alabama, where we've got some other computers, some other monitoring capabilities set up. So when Josh does an attack, it's actually attacking systems set up in Huntsville, displaying here. So this is a live attack, so that everything is working just as it would in the real world. So what's going to happen as the cyber criminal, the primary way that most of these attacks start is what they call the phishing email. You may have heard that term. But it is an email that's designed to make you think you want to read it, you want to open it or do something with it. So the cyber criminal creates that email and sends it in to the unsuspecting victim. What we're hoping for then is that the victim opens it up, and when it opens up, what it does, it's actually connecting back to the cyber criminal and allowing that cyber criminal to work on that victim's laptop or desktop just as if he were sitting directly at the keyboard. They can do anything that the user could do. From there, the cyber criminal is going to see what else can I get to. Maybe there's not much of value on that system, but what else am I connected to? And then can I move from the system I'm on to another system and ultimately pull back something that's really of value. Okay? So that's kind of the simple high-level scenario that we're looking at. Now in the beginning, as I said, a cyber criminal doesn't necessarily know what your business is, doesn't know what you're doing, what you do on a daily basis. So they've got to do some spying, they've got to do some reconnaissance, they've got to collect what we call open source intelligence. So Josh, I'll turn it over to you to kind of start stepping through how do you prepare as a cyber criminal, how do you prepare for that attack?
Awesome, thanks Robert. So my name is Josh, and let me throw out two quick things before we do the process of compromising an environment. Number one little tidbit for you, I found one of the more challenging things in this job is actually explaining to my children what I do. It's kind of, when I come home and they're like, hey, what'd you do today, Daddy? My wife doesn't really look at it so well when I say, well, actually, I called somebody, lied to them, broke into their machines, and stole all their stuff. It's like, not so much. So, Daddy does computer stuff. That's really where it stops. So, kind of something interesting. Another thing Don wanted me to point out is on your tables are some index cards. If you have any questions, feel free to write those down on there and we can take a look at those. And then as well, we're going to talk, this is really focused, like Robert said, on compromising organization. But we're going to weave in some things and talk later about how that really applies to home use, okay? So we'll have a little bit of everything kind of pulled in there as best we can. So going back to Robert's question about how does this start? What do? We really start with something called open source intelligence, OSINT for short. And OSINT's a fancy way of saying I look at stuff on the internet that anybody can get to. That's really all it means. And what that really comes down to is I'm usually looking at things like LinkedIn or Facebook or a company's website. And I'm really just trying to understand what that company does, what that user is interested in, just information that you think is common, but for me, I can use that as leverage. And so you might ask, well, how can I use that as leverage? Well, if I go to your Facebook page and you have posted up there that you're really into motorcycles, well, if I'm going to send you an email, I'm probably not going to have a lot of success if I'm phishing you and I'm asking you for something about reindeer, okay? Not going to help. But if I say, hey, did you see this motorcycle? And it happens to be the exact motorcycle that you have me looking up, my likelihood of you doing whatever it is I want you to do is a lot higher. And so, apparently, if you Google, this is actually kind of a funny thing to Google. If you Google the word hacking and look up what the images are, apparently, for my job, I'm normally supposed to wear my black hoodie and I'm supposed to have on my black gloves. And when I look at the walls here, I don't see walls, I see computer code raining down. That's what apparently a hacker does. Well, like that's not hacking at all. Hacking is really simple. It's really just abusing trust. So in poor decisions in my life, when I told my parents something that wasn't the truth to get to something else, I was just hacking my parents at that point. Not a good decision, but what we were doing. That's all we do with computers. I'm really just abusing trust. So sometimes that trust is at the computer level, with code, but a lot of the times it's with people. And so going back, like I said, to Robert's point, is when we go look at a company, we say, okay, what does this company do? Because I don't want to look weird. I want to look just like what you're expecting. So for instance, if you're a sales company, I'm not going to send you a request for free technical support. But what if I send you a request to buy 1,000 widgets? Sounds plausible. So that's what we do, okay? So I'm going to walk through sending an email here. And so typically, I'll give you some real-world examples that we've used this in. So one customer was a sales company. They asked us to assess them and see if we could break in and what we could find. Okay? So the first thing we do is we go to the website, we get information from it, figure out who the key people are as much as they'll disclose, and we figure out what they do. And then we start thinking, what is a plausible scenario for that user to click on whatever it is I want them to click on? And so because they're a sales company, we find a sales guy, and the sales guy wants to do what? He wants to sell so he can make money, okay? So we find a sales guy and we say, okay, we'll usually pick up the phone. Sometimes we'll pick up the phone and we'll call that person, sound completely normal, say, hey, I want to buy 10,000 of these widgets. Okay, at that point, that sales guy most likely will click on absolutely anything I send him because he wants to make some money at that point, right? So I'm going to say, hey, I need a quote on this. I need it by tomorrow. Can you do that? Of course he can do that. So at that point, I've got trust. And I think back, hacking, abusing trust. He trusts me. He's expecting an email from me. Okay? So what's he expecting an email that's to say? I need a quote on this many products. Okay? So he's ready for me to send that email for him. Okay? And a lot of times, one of the interesting things for companies, it doesn't matter if it's a company of 6 people. I guess that's 6 or 9 people, I guess is the smallest we've ever tested. We've tested companies that have tens of thousands of people. Doesn't matter whichever one. It usually all comes down to one email. That's really it. So we kind of have the mantra of one shot, one kill. We're going to usually send one email in. That's all we need to make it happen. Okay? So I'm going to walk through what that email looks like. Some components of it. I'm going to zoom in. I know it's a little bit harder to see, especially in the back, but just don't get caught up too much in the details. The big concept is what we're trying to get across. So because it's a sales guy, we've rigged a malicious Excel document in this case, and if they open it, it's going to give us control of the machine. One of the interesting things we do, we've called it equipmentquote.xls, and we're storing the file on a public website called Dropbox. You may or may not have heard of, but all you need to know is it's pretty trusted in most corporate environments, okay? So nothing suspicious. Again, I'm trying to avoid suspicion. So I've got that document, and then I've got a free Gmail account over here, and on that Gmail account, oh, snap, I just deleted it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you can see I've identified Robert, who I've already talked to, and I said, hey Robert, thank you for talking this morning. Could I please get a quote on the items on this Excel sheet? Okay? And then below it, it just has the link to Dropbox. That's it. That's all there is to it on my end. Okay? So I'm cordial, it's expected, it makes sense, it's in line with his job, my work's done. We've done a lot of homework to that point. Don't let me fool you and say that's like 5 minutes of work. I mean, that was a couple of days worth of research and prep and everything. So once we get to that point, I really just hit send. And my job as an attacker is really to wait. Because sometimes this can take days, sometimes hours. The last engagement we were on, from the moment I hit send just a second ago, 71 seconds after hitting send, I had control of that user's machine. Within a little under 50 minutes, we had everything in the whole company just done. So it could move really fast. So like Robert will tell you, I think he came in during that point, and you're pretty much dead to me at that point. I'm just sitting there going as fast as I can, because it's kind of a race at that point to make sure you've got all your stuff in a row. So at that point, we've sent the email, and really I'm just going to wait. And so Robert will kind of show you what it looks like on his end.
All right. So updating our picture, as Josh said, we've got the emails going across. It's sitting on the victim's machine. And again, here's where you can be patient. Maybe I'm out that day. Doesn't matter to the cyber criminal. He's just going to wait. At some point, I'm going to come back in. See if I can get my machine to move over. And when I look at my inbox, I'm going to see I've got this new email that's come in. Yeah, and it's an email I was expecting. I've talked to Josh, or to Will in this case, on the phone. He told me he was going to send it. He did. So I'm going to open that email up, and sure enough, just like he told me, he sent me a link to the Dropbox, which I'll happily click because I'm wanting to get to the sales part of this. And now when I look at the Dropbox, I see that there's this file he sent to me that I want to open. And it's an Excel spreadsheet. And that's what I use in my normal business. And it looks like it's protected. Obviously, he's got some information that he wants to protect, but he's given me the instructions. And I'll come up here and, all right, Excel wants me to enable the editing. And then Josh has told me I need to enable content. So I'll do that.
And real quick, I'd say, again, if you think about that definition of abusing trust, like this is a completely legit, whether you're a home user or a business user, I'm saying that document's secured. I'm trying to build you up to think, like, by doing this, you're going to be safer. I mean, that's my whole goal. I don't care if you're at home or at work. I want you to trust what I'm sending and make it more believable. So that falls right in line with that.
And when I do get that spreadsheet open, sure enough, just as Josh told me on the phone, here's his equipment list that he's interested in. So I'm happy. I can now start working up a quote, seeing what we're going to charge for these parts, and start building up and getting ready to respond to Josh.
Yep, absolutely. So, one of the things we're doing, I don't want to say it's magician. We're trying to create an illusion here, right? So I don't want Robert in this case to think anything's up. So I make sure that what I ask him for again is plausible. And now Robert is, if I'm cruel, I just ask him for a quote on 1,000 items and make him do a whole lot of work. We're not usually that mean. We only ask for like 3, so they don't waste the time. But he's going to go on his business and give me an answer for how much those things cost. But what Robert doesn't know is when he hit enable macros in that case, or enable content, is that actually gave me control of his machine. So if you look over on my screen over here on the left, you'll see I'm now in control of a computer called Robert Jackson with a user called Robert Jackson. And really how we communicate to people when we're giving outreach and kind of telling them, at this point, I can do anything you can do. If you want me to send emails at you, if you want me to look at all your files, you name it, we can do it. Okay, that's the kind of concept we want to kind of put across. So let me show you a little bit about what we do when we first compromise a machine and how that kind of works in a corporate environment. And I'm going to turn my back to you for a little bit, just do a little bit of work. Okay?
And notice why he's doing that. So he's compromised my machine. He's on my machine. This is my desktop. Nothing's changed. I see no evidence that he is on this box and operating. And I think that's one of the things that we like to highlight for folks, because a lot of times you see a lot of commercials or videos put together for impact, and they show somebody's screen and all of a sudden it's going crazy or it's shutting down and they're in a panic. That would be like a criminal breaking into your home. They came in at night, they came in quietly, they broke in, and then immediately running to your bedroom and go, hey, I'm here. It's not what cyber criminals do, any kind of criminal, right? They want to be quiet. So there's no evidence at all that he's on the box and has access to my system.
Right, which is how we want to keep it, right? I don't, just like Robert said, I don't want to be found. That's exactly the opposite of the goal of emails. So some of the things that we'll do right when we land, the first thing we'll do is we'll do something called persistence. And all that is I'm going to put things on your system that whether you reboot it or turn it off or whatever it is, I'm going to be there when you come back. That's all. I just want to guarantee that I'm always there. That's pretty much any home malware or business malware, whatever it is, they're almost always going to have a way that they're going to stick. Because I don't want to go through all that trouble, get you, and then you go home that night and I've lost you. That's not any fun, for me at least. First thing we're going to do is persistence. Another thing we're going to do so that we can get an idea of what your machine, what you're doing really, just to get an idea of what's going on, is I'm going to get a screenshot. So I'm going to say, hey, give me a screenshot of what Robert's desktop looks like. And then another thing I'm going to do is I want to look at every single keystroke that Robert types, okay? So I'm going to get all your, like you've got this long, really good password, which is great. Like, don't have the same password for everything. Make sure it's long. Those are all good things, right? But I don't care. You're going to type it. So I'm going to get it in a minute, okay? So we're going to get keystrokes. We're going to get screenshots. And then the other thing I want to do is I want to run as administrator. Okay, so you'll hear good information security professionals saying don't run as administrator. Well, the reason you don't want to, actually, let me just show you. So one of the things I'm going to do is, in this case, Robert was ill-advised in running as administrator. So by doing that, he's going to let me run my stuff as administrator. So I'm going to get another connection from Robert's box. Lord willing, let's see. I should also say live demos. Like, you've got to be a little bit of a masochist to do this because they almost never work just like they're supposed to. Hold on one second. There we go. Okay. All right. All right. So what I've done perceptively to the user, again, if you look at Robert's desktop, it's not going to be any different. He's working like normal and carries on. For me, though, I've now got two connections from Robert's box. And you'll notice these two that I have highlighted. And the only thing really different is there's one that has a little asterisk by it. In that case, it just tells me, hey, this is running as an administrator. So let me show you why that's a big deal, okay? So you'll notice there's a tab over here called credentials, okay? So what I'm going to do is, now that I'm an administrator, I can run a couple commands. And in those commands, I'm going to get passwords. So what you will see over here now in credentials is there's Robert Jackson, and there's his clear text password. Okay? So again, one of the things people will sometimes ask us is like, oh, you crack lots of passwords? And generally the answer is no, almost never. Because the odds are I'm going to get the clear text passwords right out of memory, just like there, I just showed you, or you're going to type them, which I'm going to get as well. Right? So we don't usually actually have to break passwords very often. That's an important step, and I'll show you why here in just a second. So if you'll notice over here under screenshots, we've got our screenshot back from Robert, and you can see in this case, there's what he was working on. So that's the file I sent him, and I can see he had his email open. Some funny things we've had happen, like, so for instance, when we're keylogging and getting screenshots, is sometimes we'll see some of those administrators detect our activity. They'll see us like saying like, oh, have you seen something weird happening on that server? So we'll typically know what's going to happen before, so we'll move off of that server. So again, like, there's never going to be a real hacker movie because nobody wants to sit there and watch a movie about a guy that sits there and looks at their screen for 16 hours. Like, that's really not that appealing, So we've got our screenshot, so we've got a little bit of idea what Robert's working on. We can also go over here and see that Robert is typing something in Word. And he says, and he's also trolling me, asking me if I'm an Auburn fan. He knows I'm a Mississippi State guy, so this is what Robert has to do. So no, Robert, I am not an Auburn fan. I'm a Mississippi State fan, sorry. So I've got this information. That's all well and good. Now, what's an attacker's goal? I mean, at the end of the day, I want money. And how am I going to get money? Information. So like, even though I've got on this machine, well, what if Robert is not, what if he doesn't have any data I care about? Not likely, but possible. So typically, this is where we want to get bigger. We want to see more people, more stuff, okay? So what I'm going to do is from Robert's one machine, I'm going to do something called a port scan. And I'm going to say, hey, I want you to tell me everything that's going on in this network and everything that I can see, okay? So I'm going to kick off a scan, and that's really that's from Robert's machine, so I'm connected, somewhere in, Huntsville, Alabama, to a corporate network that's in, Sheboygan or Oregon or wherever it is, doesn't matter. And I'm connected to that machine, but I'm going to scan their internal network. You couldn't see this on the internet, but Robert could see it. And so while I might not care that much about what Robert has, Robert is definitely a good pawn to have because I can use him to see more stuff, and that's what I want, is more stuff, okay? So what I can see after scanning is I'm going to look down the list of all the machines it found, and this one kind of catches my eye. You can see one called Joe CIO. And that would be something of interest to me. I want to look. I want to learn more about it. Maybe interesting, maybe not. But there's a little bit of a problem, right? Because this doesn't always work that way. So I'm going to say, hey, show me everything on Joe CIO's machine. And when I do, it says, hey, you can't do that. Access denied. So as good attackers, we kind of pack it up and leave, right? No, not at all. We're very much like water. We just really go in the easy path of least resistance. But if you don't stop us, if you stop us the first time, we just try something else. I have failed plenty of times. I've gotten used to it sometimes. So I'm more than willing to try something else, okay? So that's really what we do. So if you remember back, we had some passwords over here. And you saw Robert's password. That didn't really do me any good in this case. So I'm kind of done with Robert. Let's go try something else, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this administrator password. And you say, well, what in the world? What kind of password is that? That actually is an encrypted password. Well, what good is that going to do me? I literally can't actually tell you what the password is for that account right now. I have no idea. But you know what? It's a great thing that you know as an attacker, we know Windows systems pretty well. And what I can tell you is, it doesn't even matter that I don't know what that password is. Because I can use this, what looks like a bunch of gobbledygook, is actually an encrypted password. That's good enough for me. It's good enough for Windows, so I can work with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let me copy that password, or that hash in this case, the encrypted password. And I'm going to say, let's use it. And when we use it, what you'll notice is, let's look up Joe CIO's machine again. And when I say, hey, show me Joe's machine, he says, hey, look, that worked. Great. So now I've got access to Joe's machine. So what can I do at this point? All right. So I am going to jump over, and what you'll notice here at the top, you'll see that there's 2 users connected right now, and on the same machine. So I have 2 connections to 1 box. So now I'm going to run something that's going to be on Joe CIO's machine. And what you should notice is now I have 3. Okay, so now I'm on Joe's machine. This is where it gets interesting for me. Okay, so I'm going to jump over on Joe's machine, and let me get this. All right. So in the tradecraft is very similar. The process is real similar. Like, I don't really know anything about Joe. I'd like to get to know Joe, like a little bit closer, kind of a friend there. So I'm going to see what his screen looks like. I'm going to start keylogging him, and then I'm going to poke around a little bit more on Joe and see what he can give me. Okay. And so first thing we're going to do is we're going to do our. We're going to go through and we are going to see. We can start and get a screenshot on Joe.
So I've got Joe's desktop back up. Again, no indication that anything's going on in the background.
And we're going to get a keylogger going. So at that point, you can see, we can jump over and we can see what's on Joe CIO's desktop. And then you'll see in this case, it looks like Joe is doing something with accounting something, cash flow. Okay? So I can see everything going on Joe, and he's going to Google right now. So when he goes to Google and types something in, I'm going to see all that. When he goes to his email and types an email out, I'm going to see all that. When he completes whatever form he completes, we're going to see that. Okay? So we've got a good start to go with Joe. Now, again, if you think about the mindset, is we're not after it to get machines. Like, it doesn't help me to get all the machines on the network and have nothing to show for it. So I'm after data. So what does that look like? Okay? It's pretty simple, actually. It's pretty much just like your home computer. I'm going to go in and say, hey, let's look at all the files on Joe's machine. And let me show you. So kind of interest to me is I'm going to say, oh, look, here's all the users and the user information on that machine. So you can see here's a list of all the users that have logged on to Joe's machine. So I can go to Joe's machine and say, hey, show me everything in Joe's documents, for instance. So I can see all his accounting information, his contact information, his confidential things. I mean, whatever it is, I've got access to see it, and not just see it, I can download it. I can download it, modify it, and put it back. I mean, we can really just do anything that Joe could do, right? Again, the other thing we'll typically do is Joe might not be the end goal. You know, I'm really wanting to get bigger. I want to get everything. That's usually the goal, right? So here's my pop quiz for everybody. What we find, I kind of have a saying that I give to our junior guys, and that saying is, there's always, always, always a passwords file. There is a file on somebody's desktop or somebody's machine that has passwords in it. So my pop quiz is, can you guys tell me what the name of the passwords file is? Passwords, of course. And I've already kind of given it away. Can you guess where that password file sits? The desktop, yes, yes. And we know this, and it's true, and it's great. It's just finding it. So what we usually will do is we're going to go and we're going to say, okay, Joe CIO, maybe he's got some interesting documents, but I look at the user list and I say, hey, look at this guy, data center admin. That might be interesting. So I'm going to click on data center admin and say, we're going to go to the good old desktop, and we're going to see, look, there's our passwords list. And like, you think I'm making this up. Like, we have brought down so many systems with this file. It's ridiculous, okay? So as a good bad guy would do, I don't know if that's actually real, but as a good bad guy would do, I want to download it, of course. So let me show you what that looks like. So in this case, we're going to download it, and what you'll see is when I go over here and say, show me the contents of that file, hey, there we go. Here's all the login information to all their stuff. And that's how, I mean, like, that's how a legit big-time organization goes down, just like that. Like I said, and probably about the same amount of time sometimes. So, yes, ma'am, is your question?
Does it matter if the document password protected?
Not if you type the password. So the question was, does it matter if the document is password protected? You can definitely make it harder on me, but then I just have to wait for you to type the password in, and because I'm keylogging you. So if you type it in on that machine, I've got that, and we see that fairly regularly. So, which leads to the whole other question of like, how do I do passwords correctly? And like, I'm still looking for that answer. That's tricky. So that's a hard answer. So.
And keep in mind, he's not telling you not to password protect it.
Yes.
You should put all the speed bumps in the road that you can, effectively manage. You want to make it harder. But just recognize that if he's motivated, he's going to keep trying to find ways around it as well.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, so as far as the demo goes, that's where we go from there really is, now that I have clear text passwords for the critical, that account password for the data center is going to get me to every machine on the entire network. So really, my two favorite documents when I get into a system is for corporations at least, is not the ones you might expect. My favorite ones is an org chart and a network diagram, because that tells me exactly who to target and where to target them. They're really helpful. Because you think about it, I mean, like, I'm just a really bad admin. I'm doing admin kind of things. I'm just doing it for really bad purposes. Well, I'm landed in an environment that I don't know that Sally's the HR person, so I've got to figure all that out pretty quickly. So that's where those documents come in really handy. So from our perspective, we start to get bigger by going onto the server, looking through the documents, and like I said, there's never going to be a real hacker movie. Nobody wants to sit there and watch me pour over your emails and understand that you eat Quiznos on Monday and Chipotle on Tuesday. Like, nobody cares, right? But I care. Like, I've got to go through all that because somewhere in your email, somewhere on your desktop, somewhere in your documents, somewhere in stuff that you had no idea you had access to is a gem. And it's going to get me to push over the whole company. You might not realize it, but it's there. And that's what we're hunting for. And that's really what we do hunt, is information. So that's how, like I said, it looks a little, I guess from up here, I don't know what your perspective is. I could see where you could say that's a little contrived. That is spot on what we do to push over